She hadn't opened a spreadsheet in 17 years. But when the attorney slid the laptop across the mahogany desk and said, "Your aunt left specific instructions. You're the only one who can finish this," her fingers moved to the keyboard like they'd never stopped. The first cell contained a single word: run. That was 3 days after the funeral. 3 days after standing in a church basement eating dry sandwiches while her cousin Jordan talked about property values, and her sister Michelle cried theatrical tears that never quite reached her eyes. 3 days after the lawyer said there was no estate. Nothing left. Just debts and an old house that needed to be sold quickly. They were so sure. They were so wrong. Because Aunt Vivian didn't leave money. She left something far more dangerous. She left the truth in columns and rows. Hidden in a language only 2 people in the family had ever bothered to learn. That was the moment everything began to unravel. This is her value stories. For anyone who's ever been treated like they were less than they are. For anyone who's ever been the one in the family who asked too many questions. If you're new here, take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Before we continue, tell me in the comments. Have you ever discovered that someone in your family wasn't who everyone thought they were? My name is Charlotte. I'm 52 years old, and until that morning in the attorney's office, I thought the most interesting thing about my week would be whether the grocery store still had the good coffee on sale. I teach high school math in a small town outside Phoenix. I drive a 12-year-old Honda. My apartment has 1 bedroom and a view of a parking lot. My ex-husband remarried someone younger and thinner, and I'm pretty sure my own children prefer her Christmas cookies. I'm fine with all of that. Really. You reach a certain age and you stop fighting what your life is. But I wasn't always this quiet. 25 years ago, I was the first person in my family to go to college. I studied accounting because my Aunt Vivian told me that numbers never lie. Only people do. I graduated top of my class. Had job offers. I had ambition. Then I met David. We got married. Got pregnant. And David said someone needed to stay home with a baby. And his career was further along, so it made sense. 1 baby became 2. Staying home for a year became staying home for 5. When I finally tried to go back, the world had moved on. My degree felt ancient. My confidence was gone. So I became a teacher. Stable. My sister Michelle took a different path. She married a dentist, lives in a house with a 3-car garage, and has never worked a day in her life. She chairs charity committees and takes spa weekends and talks about her girls, her daughters, like they're accessories. My cousin Jordan went into commercial real estate. He wears expensive watches and laughs too loud and has opinions about wine. And then there was Aunt Vivian. Vivian never married. Never had children. She worked as a bookkeeper for 40 years, lived in the same modest house in Tucson, drove the same car until it literally died, and everyone in the family treated her like eccentric old spinster who'd wasted her life. She was my favorite person in the world. When I was young, when I still believed I could be something, Vivian would sit with me at her kitchen table and teach me Excel like it was a secret language. She showed me how to make formulas dance, how to track patterns, how to see stories in the numbers that other people missed. Most people look at a spreadsheet and see data, she'd say. But you and me, Charlotte, we see the truth trying to get out. I visited her once a month, even after my marriage fell apart, even after my kids stopped calling unless they needed something. We'd drink tea and work crossword puzzles and she'd ask me if I was happy. I always lied and said yes. 3 weeks before she died, she grabbed my hand with surprising strength. Her voice was paper-thin but absolutely clear. "I need you to promise me something," she said. "When I'm gone, don't let them sell the house until you've looked at my computer. The password is your birthday. Check the folder called Household Accounts. Promise." She died quietly in her sleep 2 weeks later. The doctor said it was her heart. I wondered if hearts could just get tired of beating. The funeral was efficient. Michelle organized it like a corporate event. 30 minutes for the service, 45 for the reception, then everyone goes home. Jordan showed up in a suit that cost more than my monthly rent and spent most of the time on his phone, probably closing deals. Michelle's husband didn't come. Too busy. But Michelle cried beautifully into a monogrammed handkerchief. I stood in the corner and watched them perform grief, and I thought about Vivian's sharp eyes, her careful words, her hand gripping mine with that urgent strength. After the service, we gathered at Vivian's house for the will reading. The attorney was a thin man named Paul Hendricks with kind eyes and the careful manner of someone who'd delivered bad news before. He explained that Vivian's estate was minimal. The house had a reverse mortgage. She'd borrowed against it to cover living expenses in her final years. There were some debts, medical bills. Once everything was settled, there would be almost nothing left. Michelle dabbed her eyes. Poor Aunt Vivian. She tried so hard, but she just never quite succeeded, did she? Jordan nodded sympathetically. I can handle the house sale. I know people. We'll get it done quickly, minimize the hassle for everyone. They had it all worked out. They'd probably discussed it before Vivian was even cold. Then Hendricks cleared his throat. There is one item, he said carefully. Miss Vivian left specific instructions regarding her personal laptop. It's to go to Charlotte, and Charlotte alone. She was very clear about this. He slid the laptop across his desk to me. Michelle's smile tightened. A laptop. That's sweet, I suppose. Though I can't imagine what Charlotte would do with Vivian's old files. Jordan laughed. Probably just recipes and email. You know how old people are with computers. But Hendricks wasn't laughing. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Miss Vivian also left you a note, he said, handing me an envelope. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside, in Vivian's careful handwriting, they think I was nobody. Prove them wrong. The password is 081571. Start with household accounts. Trust only the numbers. Love always, V. August 15, 1971. My birthday. I took the laptop home that night. Sat at my kitchen table. Made tea I didn't drink. Stared at the screen for 20 minutes before I finally opened it. The desktop was immaculate. Just 3 folders: personal, photos, and household accounts. I clicked on household accounts. Inside were spreadsheets, dozens of them, all labeled with years: 2008, 2009, 2010, going all the way back to 1998 and forward to just 2 months before she died. I opened the most recent one. My heart stopped. It wasn't household accounts. It was a ledger, a meticulous, comprehensive record of financial transactions. Money moving in and out of accounts, transfers, withdrawals, deposits, and every single entry was tagged with a name. Michelle's name appeared 847 times. Jordan's name appeared 623 times. The amounts weren't small. $15,000 here, $30,000 there, $75,000 in a single transfer in 2015. I scrolled faster, my breath coming in short gasps. Vivian had tracked everything: bank statements, forged signatures on loan documents, power of attorney papers that looked legitimate but had inconsistencies in the notary stamps. And in a separate tab labeled Summary, she'd calculated the total. Over 18 years, Michelle and Jordan had systematically stolen $2.3 million from Vivian. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely move the mouse. There was another file. Evidence. Clicked it. PDFs. Hundreds of them. Original documents showing Vivian's actual signatures compared to the forged ones on the financial papers. Bank statements with highlighted discrepancies. Emails between Michelle and Jordan discussing handling Aunt V's finances and making sure she doesn't ask questions. A recorded phone call from 2016 where Jordan said, "She's not going to remember anyway. Her mind's going. Who's going to believe a confused old lady?" But Vivian's mind wasn't going. She was an accountant. She noticed everything. And she'd spent 18 years documenting every lie, every theft, every betrayal, while they smiled to her face and called her eccentric. At the bottom of the folder was a video file dated 3 weeks before her death. Clicked it. Vivian's face filled the screen. Thin, pale, but her eyes were sharp as ever. "Hello, Charlotte," she said, and I started crying. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone, and you've found what I left you. I'm sorry to burden you with this. I'm sorry it has to be you. But you're the only one I trust. The only one who ever saw me as more than a harmless old woman who didn't matter." She paused, gathering strength. "They started in 1998, right after I was diagnosed with diabetes. Michelle convinced me I needed help managing my finances. I was stupid enough to believe her. By the time I realized what was happening, they'd taken so much that going to the police seemed pointless. Who would believe me over Michelle with her perfect life and Jordan with his successful career?" Her voice hardened. "So I did what I do best. I watched. I recorded. I documented. Every transaction. Every lie. Every time they took something that wasn't theirs while pretending to care about me. I built a case they can't talk their way out of." She leaned closer to the camera. "Charlotte, you were the only one who visited me because you wanted to, not because you wanted something. You're the only one who ever asked me if I was happy. You're the only one who deserves to know the truth. Use this however you see fit. I trust your judgment. I always have." The video ended. I sat in my kitchen and finally understood. Vivian hadn't been helpless. She'd been patient. She hadn't been confused. She'd been strategic. And she'd left me the kill. I didn't sleep that night. I went through every file, every spreadsheet, every document. Vivian had been meticulous. The evidence was irrefutable. But there was something else in the folders. Something I hadn't expected. A subfolder labeled Charlotte. Inside was a single document. Letter. "Dearest Charlotte, if you're reading this, you've seen what they did. You're probably angry. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you're wondering why I didn't fight back while I was alive. The truth is, I was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being alone. Tired of watching people I loved turn into strangers. But I wasn't defeated. There's something else you need to know. Something I never told anyone. In 1995, I inherited money from my parents. A significant amount. By the time Michelle and Jordan started stealing from me, I had just over $3 million in various accounts. They found most of it. But not all. In 2000, when I realized what was happening, I moved $1.2 million into a trust. A trust they don't know exists. I set it up through an attorney in Flagstaff, someone they never met, someone who had no connection to the family. That trust has been growing for 23 years. As of last month, it's worth $2.7 million. Charlotte, that money is yours. All of it. You are the sole beneficiary. The documentation is in a safe deposit box at First National Bank in Flagstaff. The key is taped under the bottom drawer of my desk, the right side. Box number 447. I'm giving this to you because you're the daughter I never had. Because you were kind when kindness cost you something. Because you saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. Use it. Build something. Be happy. Stop being small. But before you take the money, you have a choice to make. You can take the evidence I've given you to the police. You can destroy Michelle and Jordan. You can get justice. Or you can walk away. Take the money, let them think they got away with it, and start a new life far from all of this. I won't judge either choice. Justice and peace don't always live in the same house. Whatever you decide, know that I loved you. Know that you mattered. Know that you were never as small as you thought you were. All my love. Vivian. I read it 3 times. Then I drove to Vivian's house at 2 in the morning, let myself in with the key she'd given me years ago, and found the safe deposit key exactly where she said it would be. The next morning I drove to Flagstaff. 3 hours through the desert, my mind spinning with possibilities. The attorney was a woman named Dr. Patricia Moreno, maybe 60, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She verified my identity, then pulled out the trust documents. Your aunt was one of the most remarkable women I've ever met, she said. She set this up 23 years ago and never touched it. Never wavered. Just let it grow while she waited for the right moment. She slid the final page across to me. Current value, $2,742,988. I stared at the number until it blurred. There's one more thing, Dr. Moreno said gently. Your aunt left final instructions. She said I was to ask you a question before you accessed the funds. Waited. She wanted to know, do you want justice or do you want peace? I didn't answer right away. I drove home, went to work, taught parabolas to teenagers who didn't care, came home to my small apartment, and I thought about Vivian. I thought about 18 years of theft, 18 years of lies, 18 years of my aunt being treated like she didn't matter while Michelle and Jordan built their lives on money that wasn't theirs. I thought about Michelle's perfect house, her perfect daughters, her spa weekends and charity galas, all funded by stealing from a woman who'd never hurt anyone. I thought about Jordan's watches and his wine opinions and his smug certainty that he was smarter than everyone else. And I thought about Vivian, alone in that house, documenting everything in silence because no one would believe her. The rage came in waves. But then I thought about something else. I thought about the last time I'd seen Vivian, 3 weeks before she died. We'd been sitting on her porch drinking iced tea, and she'd asked me, Charlotte, if you could have anything in the world, what would it be? I'd said I didn't know. Yes, you do, she'd said gently. You just don't let yourself want it. And she was right. What I wanted was to not be invisible anymore. To not be the divorced teacher in the small apartment, who everyone had stopped expecting anything from. What I wanted was to matter. 2 days after visiting Dr. Moreno, Michelle called. We need to talk about Aunt Vivian's house, she said in her sweetest voice. Jordan found a buyer. We can close quickly. I was thinking we'd split the proceeds 3 ways. You, me, and Jordan. Even though there's barely anything left after the debts, it's only fair. Fair. The word made me want to scream. Actually, I said carefully, I've been going through Vivian's things. Her computer files. There was the smallest pause. The tiniest hesitation. Her computer files. Michelle's voice was still sweet, but something had shifted underneath. What kind of files? Financial records. Spreadsheets. She kept very detailed records. Silence. Charlotte, Michelle said, and now the sweetness was gone. Whatever you think you found, you need to be very careful. Aunt Vivian wasn't well toward the end. Her mind was going. She was confused. She wrote down all sorts of nonsense. Her mind wasn't going. Charlotte. Michelle's voice turned hard, crystalline. Don't do this. Don't make this into something it's not. Aunt Vivian gave me power of attorney because she trusted me. Everything I did was legal and appropriate. If you start making accusations, you're going to embarrass yourself and hurt the family. The family. Yes, family. We take care of each other. We don't air our private business to strangers. We certainly don't. Hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From clarity. 20 minutes later, Jordan called. Danny. He only called me Danny when he wanted something. Michelle said you're upset about some files on Aunt V's computer. Listen, I know this has been hard on you. You were close to her. Grief can make us see things that aren't there. I see spreadsheets, Jordan. 18 years of transactions. Your name is on 623 of them. The silence was different this time. Colder. When he spoke again, his voice had no pretense left. You need to think very carefully about what you're doing. I have lawyers, Charlotte. Good ones. If you make accusations you can't prove, if you try to damage my reputation, I will bury you in legal fees until you lose that sad little apartment. Do you understand me? I understood perfectly. They weren't even pretending anymore. I sat in my apartment that night with 2 paths in front of me. Path 1, take the money. Walk away. Let Michelle and Jordan think they'd won. Start over somewhere new. Be free. Path 2. Take the evidence to the police. Destroy them. Get justice for Vivian, even if it meant dragging the family through a public scandal. Even if it meant becoming the villain in everyone else's story. Vivian had given me the choice deliberately. She knew what it would cost either way. Peace or justice. But she'd left out a third option. And that's when I understood what she'd really been teaching me all those years ago at her kitchen table. Numbers don't lie. but they can be strategic. I called Dr. Moreno. I've made my decision, I said. If this story reminds you of someone who believed in you when no one else did, someone who saw you when you were invisible, share it with them. They need to know they mattered. I didn't go to the police. I did something better. I called Michelle and Jordan and asked them to meet me at Vivian's house. Family meeting. Important estate matters. They came because they were confident. Because they thought I was just Charlotte. Quiet, defeated Charlotte who never made waves. We sat in Vivian's living room. The three of us. I opened the laptop. I found Vivian's files, I said calmly. All of them. Michelle started to speak, but I held up my hand. I have 18 years of documentation. Bank records. Forged signatures. Email correspondence between the two of you. Recorded phone calls. Video testimony from Vivian explaining exactly what you did and when. Jordan's face went white. I also have access to a very good attorney, I continued. And I've been informed that what you did constitutes elder financial abuse, fraud and forgery. The statute of limitations hasn't expired on most of it. The evidence is overwhelming. Michelle found her voice. If you do this, you'll destroy the family. You destroyed it 18 years ago. I'm just showing people what's left. We'll fight this, Jordan said. You'll lose, I said simply. But here's what's interesting. I don't actually want to destroy you. I want something else. They waited. You're going to write a check. Review. Together, the amount will total $2.3 million. Every dollar you stole, plus interest calculated at the rate Vivian's trust earned over the same period. You have 60 days. We don't have that kind of, Michelle started. Sell your house, I said. Liquidate your investments. Take out loans. I don't care how you do it. But you will pay back every cent. And if we refuse? Jordan's voice was ice. Then I take everything I have to the district attorney's office tomorrow morning. You'll both go to prison. Your reputations will be destroyed. Your families will know what you are. And I'll still get the money through restitution. It'll just take longer and be much more public. I stood up. You have until Monday to decide. After that, the choice is made for you. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. 60 days later, I received 2 certified checks totaling $2.3 million. Michelle sold her house. Jordan liquidated his investment portfolio. They both took out loans for the rest. I never spoke to either of them again. The money went into a scholarship fund for first-generation college students studying accounting. I named it the Vivian Hartley Fund for Women Who Count. Every year, it gives 10 full scholarships to young women who want to learn the language Vivian taught me. The language of truth in numbers. The language of refusing to be invisible. Quit teaching. Used part of Vivian's trust to buy a small house in Flagstaff with a porch and a view of the mountains. I started a consulting business helping elderly people protect their finances from family members who saw them as assets instead of people. I'm good at it. Because Vivian taught me to see patterns. To ask questions. To trust the numbers. On my porch, I hung a small plaque with Vivian's words. Numbers don't lie. Only people do. Last week, I got a letter from one of the scholarship recipients. She's graduating this year, top of her class. She wants to work in forensic accounting, catching people who think they're too smart to get caught. I wrote back and told her about a woman who spent 18 years building a case in silence because no one would believe her while she was alive. I told her that sometimes the quietest people are the most dangerous. And I told her that she matters. Because Vivian taught me that too. Thank you for spending this time with her value stories. If this story moved you, like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. What part of this story stayed with you the most? Tell me in the comments below.